A reported vicious mauling, a helpless toddler, and a father now facing the ultimate question. Was this a tragic accident or a case of deadly neglect? Police say 2 days after Christmas, 3-year-old Kingsley was dying just feet away from her father, who was asleep in the next room. I'll break down this story for you. For Law and Crime News, I'm Kennedi Walker. Picture it. It's the holiday season. Christmas was just 2 days ago. The cold air lingers, lights are still twinkling on homes, and kids are playing with their new toys from Santa Claus. But inside one Cincinnati home, the Christmas cheer quickly turned into something much darker. This is 3-year-old Kingsley, a beautiful little girl who loved Santa and was full of life and curiosity. But just 2 days after Christmas, police say her joy was shattered. As her father allegedly slept in the next room, Kingsley was reportedly attacked, mauled to death by her dad's 2 dogs. This is where things get confusing. Kingsley's father, Warren Houston, was the one who called 911. But what he told police raises some questions. Let's break down exactly what he said. According to 911 calls obtained by WXIX News, Houston told police he walked into the living room and found blood all over the room, and that Kingsley was lying on the floor dead. He allegedly told dispatchers she's completely tore apart. First responders were on their way, and dispatchers instructed him to put away any pets. Kingsley's father allegedly said they had terriers and that the dogs had been caged. But how were the dogs put away if Kingsley was attacked? Houston then appeared to have no idea how it could have happened. He allegedly said, "They're in the cage. That's why I'm like, did any of my pets attack her or something?" On the call, the dispatcher is heard asking, were the dogs loose? And Houston allegedly responded, no. Cincinnati Animal Care was called to remove 3 dogs from the home. A shelter spokesperson said the dogs were taken to the animal shelter and held for a state-mandated 10-day quarantine period. Houston is in jail and has been indicted by a Hamilton County grand jury for several criminal charges. He's been charged with involuntary manslaughter, reckless homicide, and endangering children. Joining me to talk more about this story is personal injury attorney Paul Cannon. Paul, what a horrible story.
Gosh, it is terrible.
Yeah, and in this case, the little girl's dad has been charged in connection with her death. In your experience, how do investigators approach cases like this where a family pet attacks the child?
Well, it's always a very sensitive case because you're dealing with family members and you're dealing with a very tragic situation. But the reality is that you've got to get down to the bottom of what exactly happened and why. From the story that I read, it was very unclear exactly what dogs were out, why they were out, how they got out, or why they weren't put up at the time. So I think that's going to take a lot of just kind of forensics and kind of trying to figure out exactly what happened where.
Right. And in this story, the dad who's been charged, he has allegedly said that he was sleeping when the dog attack happened. How does, that factor into the investigation? The fact that he's claiming that he was asleep, since he was asleep, that he didn't hear anything.
Well, I think that's going to make it difficult for the police to kind of, piece together the story because, but it also at the same time raises some credibility issues with me because for a dog attack of this nature to occur, as vicious as what it sounds like in the description, there had to be screaming. There had to be noise going on. And there's indication in the story that not only was the dad there, but there was someone else in the home that may have been asleep too. And how everybody missed this makes me wonder, what on earth were they taking that was putting them to sleep that hard or what was going on, because something just doesn't add up with those facts.
For sure. There's definitely a lot of questions that have, come out of this. What legal challenges arise when it comes to proving negligence or recklessness in dog attacks, especially when dogs are family pets?
Well, so Ohio is what a strict liability state. From a civil perspective, you don't even have to prove negligence for liability. From a criminal perspective, you're dealing with a separate set of criminal laws that address involuntary manslaughter, reckless homicide, endangerment of children, and these deal more. The endangerment of children, particularly, deals more with did they put them in a reckless or situation they should have been aware of was dangerous? And I think a lot of that's going to come down to, how the dogs got out of wherever they were supposed to be, and were they just allowed to roam around the house, or had they been put up, or what went on?
And now Kinsley, she did leave, behind her mother. Her mother is obviously very distraught that this happened. What will her mom go through legally, when a loved one has been attacked by a dog, especially when that dog attack is fatal? Like, just walk us through the process that she's probably going through right now legally.
Well, as a mom, I mean, the worst thing she's going through is the trauma of the loss, dealing with the legal aspects of it. As an absent party to this, there's going to be a certain degree of questioning just to find out, what were the circumstances of this child staying with the dad? Was he generally a responsive parent? Did he have issues with these particular dogs in the past? Was there any kind of problem between the dog and the child in the past? Was there any indication here that really these shouldn't have been there, in the first place at all, or that there was some indication that this was a dangerous situation?
Now, let's move on to, insurance. What role does insurance play in these types of incidents? Are dog owners often held liable through their homeowner's insurance, or do they face personal liability?
Well, these situations can be different on a case by case basis. I mean, here's the simple reality: there is no amount of money that's going to replace that lost child. But there is a claim there that the estate is entitled to make, whether through a representative of the court or a representative such as the mom who may bring it on their behalf. The claim that they make, depending on what kind of homeowner's insurance this individual had, may or may not cover this situation. A lot of policies now have started writing specific terms in there that say, we either don't cover specific breeds, or we don't cover specific situations, or we don't cover dogs at all. And it's surprising to me as a dog bite liability attorney that how many times I see these policies where the people don't even realize they don't have coverage. And the policy says we cover dogs, but then you read the fine print and it says unless X, Y, and Z, and that's pretty much every scenario you can imagine. And so they do what they can to avoid responsibility, but yet look like they have coverage a lot of times in these policies. So until you analyze their particular policy, you just don't know. If there is no policy, then the question becomes, is it even worthwhile to pursue this individual for liability? From what I read, he was living in an apartment, so there's not a home there that potentially, might have some assets in it or something like that. Does he have bank accounts or something? I don't even know if there's money that would cover something like this. So you might end up taking a judgment, and that judgment being dismissed in court under a bankruptcy law because there's just nothing there to collect.
And fatal dog attacks are on the rise, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. How can local governments address the growing problem of dangerous dogs, and what measures can they put in place to prevent incidents like this from happening?
Well, and that's been the age-old question that has wrestled with governments and people for decades now, as to what degree can you regulate and prevent something like this? Because the reality is good. There's good owners and there's bad owners out there, and a bad owner can make a Chihuahua a dangerous animal. If you don't raise a dog right, love it right, care for it right, it can be dangerous. So is the solution to say, well, we're going to just ban all dogs? Or is the solution to say we're going to do this? I don't think that's the solution. I have a dog myself. I don't want him banned, but at the end of the day, you almost have to look at, well, is there something we could do to make dog owners go through a training class or something, or an awareness class? I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. It's kind of like the whole gun control problem. Is there really a solution out there, or is it just a constant debating topic?
Right. Well, is there anything that families can do to ensure that their children are safe around animals, especially dogs that they may not know well?
Well, families, number one, you have to socialize your pets well. You have to make sure that they are well trained, and particularly when you're introducing young children to them, you have to be very careful. Animals can be jealous. They can be like a or an older brother. If you bring home a new baby, the older brother gets jealous of the attention being taken away from it and can act out. And the dogs can do the exact same thing. They can act a lot like children do. And you have to train them. You have to show them that the child is friendly. You have to get them to basically socialize them with the children so that they understand that child is a member of the household and is not to be perceived as a threat. But there also is a huge burden that the parents need to understand is you should never, number one, leave a dog of any kind, size, or shape or breed with a child alone. It should never have access like that because the child doesn't know how to act around the dog. And I mean, the 3-year-old might just walk up and pull a tail or hit or do something that the dog perceives as an attack, and the dog's going to defend itself. You don't know what's going to happen unless you're there to observe it and make sure that nothing wrong happens. And in this sad situation, somehow this child had access to these dogs without a parent being around, and that's no number one. You just don't do that.
Right. Well, you were right there. One thing for sure, this is definitely a sad situation all the way around. So we'll definitely be, monitoring this story and following along. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
In Kingsley's obituary, she is remembered as a happy girl with a beautiful laugh and smile. She also loved to sing and dance for her family. For Law and Crime, I'm Kennedi Walker.